You probably imagine wealth beginning with a dramatic moment, a huge paycheck, a lucky investment, a business that suddenly takes off. But the real answer is far stranger. Most ordinary people don't build wealth through one life changing event. They build it through a long series of decisions that barely feel important when they happen. But you keep a little more than you spend. You give that money time. You repeat the process until small choices become something large. That sounds simple. So why does it feel so difficult? Because your brain was not designed to become wealthy. Your brain was designed to survive the present. Food today matters more than food years from now. Safety now matters more than comfort decades from now. A reward you can touch feels more real than a reward waiting somewhere in the future. That creates the first obstacle. The future feels imaginary. The present feels urgent. Economist Franco Modigliani helped develop the life cycle hypothesis, the idea that people try to balance spending and savings across different stages of life. In plain English, you earn at one time, save during another, and use those savings later. The theory sounds organized. Real life rarely is. Bills arrive early. Emergencies arrive without permission. Income rises and falls. Advertising constantly reminds you that comfort, status, and relief can be purchased immediately. How do ordinary people build wealth inside that pressure? They stop treating wealth like a reward. They start treating it like a system. A wealthy looking life and a wealth building life are not the same thing. One is visible, the other is mostly hidden. A new car is visible. An automatic transfer is invisible. A vacation appears in photographs. A retirement account grows quietly in the background. The world notices spending more easily than savings. That creates a dangerous illusion. You may assume the person with the expensive clothes, upgraded house, and constant travel must be financially secure. But visible consumption only proves that money was spent. It doesn't prove that money was kept. Real wealth is what remains. It is the gap between what comes in and what goes out. Is the part of your income that still belongs to your future after the present has taken its share. Can that gap begin small? It almost always does. The first stage of wealth building is not investing, it is control. You need to know where your money goes before you can direct where it grows. That doesn't mean tracking every penny forever or punishing yourself for every small purchase. It means making your financial life visible. When money stays vague, spending feels harmless. When money becomes specific, choices become clearer. You may discover that no single expense is destroying your progress. Instead, dozens of automatic habits are quietly consuming the space where wealth could have formed. A subscription here, a delivery fee there, a payment that became normal, a raise that disappeared into a more expensive lifestyle. This is called lifestyle creep. Your income rises, but your standard of living rises just as quickly. So your ability to build wealth barely changes. That outside of your life improves while the foundation stays weak. What does that mean? Because adaptation is powerful. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. The new thing feels exciting, then ordinary. The larger apartment becomes normal. The upgraded phone becomes a norm. The higher level of spending stops feeling luxurious and starts feeling necessary. The pleasure fades. The payment remains. Ordinary wealth builders interrupt that cycle. When income rises, they allow some improvement, but they also increase the amount that stays behind. They don't need to save every raise. They simply refuse to let every raise become permanent spending. That difference becomes enormous over time. Imagine two people earning the same amount. Both receive the same raise. One increases spending by the full amount. The other saves half. At first, Their lives may look almost identical. Years later, their options may be completely different. One has obligations, the other has flexibility. That flexibility is one of the first real forms of wealth. It allows you to survive a job loss, leave a toxic situation, repair a car, help someone you love, or say no when a bad opportunity appears attractive only because you need the money. Wealth is not only the ability to buy, it is the ability to wait. It is the ability to walk away. It is the ability to absorb a problem without turning it into a crisis. That begins with cash reserves. An emergency fund may feel boring because it doesn't promise high returns, but its first job is not growth. Its first job is protection. Without protection, every surprise can force you backward. A medical bill becomes a credit card debt. A repair becomes a loan. A temporary income loss becomes a long term payment. Then interest begins working against you. Why does high interest debt feel so hard to escape? Because compound growth doesn't care which side you're on. When you invest, returns can earn more returns. When you borrow at high interest, charges can create more charges. The same mathematical force can build your future or consume it. This is why ordinary wealth building often begins with two goals at the same time: creating a small safety buffer and attacking expensive debt. The buffer reduces the chance of new debt. The payoff plan reduces the cost of old debt. The order may change depending on your situation. The principle doesn't. You need enough stability to start restarting. Once that foundation exists, investing becomes more powerful. Not because investing is magic, because time is. Compound interest means that money can earn returns, and those returns can later earn returns of their own. The first years may feel disappointing because the balance is still small. Most of the growth appears to come from your contributions. That's normal. The machine is being built. At the beginning, you push it. Later, it begins helping you. This is where many people quit too early. They invest for a few months, see little change, and assume the process isn't working. But early wealth building is supposed to feel slow. A snowball begins as something you can hold. It doesn't become powerful until it has distance. What gives distance? Consistency. Richard Thaler, a behavioral economist, studied the ways people divide money into mental categories. This is called mental counting. In plain English, your brain treats dollars differently depending on the label attached to them. A tax refund may feel like bonus money. A paycheck feels like serious money. Cash in a savings account feels protected. Cash in a checking account feels available. The dollars are identical. The story changes how you use them. Ordinary wealth builders use this tendency on purpose. They separate money before it can be casually spent. Savings moves automatically. Investments happen on payday. Bills are covered in a dedicated account. Spending money has a clear limit. The system makes the correct decisions earlier. You don't need to win the same argument every day. Should this money be saved? Should it be invested? Should it stay untouched? The answer was already chosen when the system was created. That matters because motivation is unreliable. Some days you feel disciplined. Some days you feel exhausted. Some days buying something feels like the only reward available after a difficult week. A plan that depends on constant willpower will eventually meet a day when willpower is gone. Automation removes part of the struggle. Behavioral economists Shlomo Benartzi and Richard Thaler demonstrated this idea through the Save More Tomorrow program. Employees agree in advance to increase retirement contributions when future raises arrive. The increase happened later. The decision happened earlier. That made saving easier because people didn't feel an immediate cut to their current paycheck, and part of each raise went toward the future before lifestyle creep could claim it. What does that teach you? Good systems respect human weakness. They don't pretend it does not exist. Another obstacle is loss aversion, a concept associated with psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Losses tend to feel more painful than equal gains feel rewarding. That can make investing emotionally difficult. A market drop feels personal. A temporary decline feels like failure. You may want to sell simply to stop the discomfort. But ordinary long-term investors understand that volatility is not the same as permanent loss. Volatility means prices move. Permanent loss means the value never returns or the asset becomes worthless. Those are not identical. A diversified portfolio reduces the danger of depending on one company, one industry, or one prediction. Diversification means spreading your money across many investments so a single failure can't destroy everything. It may feel less exciting. That is often the point. Wealth building is usually damaged by the need for excitement. The hot stock, the perfect trade, the investment everyone suddenly discusses, the shortcut that promises to erase the slow middle. Could one big winner accelerate your progress? Yes. Could chasing one big winner destroy years of progress? Also, yes. Ordinary people usually build wealth by avoiding ruin. They keep costs reasonable. They diversify. They invest repeatedly. They allow time to do work that prediction can't reliably do. This approach may never create a dramatic story at a party. It creates something better: durability. The next stage is income. Saving matters, but saving has limits when income is too low. You can't budget your way around every structural problem. At some point, increasing the amount coming in becomes essential. That may mean asking for a raise, changing jobs, learning a skill, adding freelance work, starting a small business, building something that can earn without being tied to every hour of your day. But higher income alone doesn't create wealth. It creates capacity. What happens to that capacity determines everything. If every new dollar becomes new expense, the pressure remains. If part of every new dollar becomes ownership, wealth begins to separate from labor. Ownership can take many forms. It may be shares in broad investment funds. It may be equity in business. It may be property that produces income. It may be intellectual work that continues earning after it is created. The important shift is simple. You stop relying only on money earned today. You begin building assets that may produce value tomorrow. An asset is something you own that can grow, generate income, or reduce future costs. Not every expense object is an asset. Not every cheap object is a waste. The question is not, what does this cost? The deeper question is, what does this create? Does it create income? Does it create a useful skill? Does it save time that can be used productively? Does it reduce a future expense? Does it increase freedom? This doesn't mean every purchase must become a financial project. Life is not a spreadsheet. Money is supposed to be support living. But ordinary wealth builders learn to separate joy from impulse. They spend intentionally on what matters and become less interested in spending that exists only to impress strangers, soothe boredom, or imitate someone else's life. That creates room. Room becomes savings. Savings becomes ownership. Ownership becomes options. The process is not perfectly upward. There will be setbacks, a market decline, a job loss, an illness, a family emergency, a mistake that costs more than expected. Does a setback mean that the system failed? No. A strong financial system is not one that prevents every problem. It is one that helps you recover without losing your entire future. This is why progress should not be measured only by account balances. Measure reduced debt, measure months of expenses covered, measure the percentage of income saved, measure the amount invested automatically, measure the number of financial emergencies that no longer require panic. Those are signs of wealth before wealth looks impressive. Eventually, something changes. The interest you receive becomes noticeable. The investment growth during a good year may exceed what you contributed. The emergency fund begins to feel like peace rather than unused money. A job becomes less frightening because losing it would destroy you immediately. You realize the goal was never to become a different kind of person. The goal was to create a different relationship with time. Poor financial decisions often borrow comfort from the future. Wealth building decisions send resources toward it. One says, "Future, you'll handle this." The other says, "Future, you deserves help." That's how ordinary people actually build wealth. Not through perfect discipline, not through constant sacrifice, not through knowing exactly what the market will do. They build it by making a few useful decisions automatic, avoiding mistakes that can destroy them, increasing income when possible, owning productive assets, and giving the process enough time to become larger than their effort. The beginning still feels small. That's unavoidable. The first saved dollar doesn't feel powerful. The first investment contribution doesn't feel life changing. The first debt payment doesn't feel like freedom. But each one changes the direction. One direction repeated long enough becomes destination. You'll probably imagine wealth beginning with a dramatic moment. It usually doesn't. It begins the quiet moment when you decide that a small part of today will finally belong tomorrow.